All right, let's take our. We've looked at the warrior talent trees. Let's take our first look into Colossus specifically. We've been given some additional stuff here, but I think the first thing we need to do is we're going to pick these nodes and pick these talents, and then we are going to go through the trees and make a build complementing it, right? And we're going to be primarily focusing on single target at first, and then we'll think about Mythic Plus as well. Um, so let's start with the hero talents. So it's just crit damage, your Colossal Might stacks. Demolish does an insane amount of damage. Like a very, very large amount of damage for a global or two of cast. Personally, I'm looking at Earthquaker almost every single time because having your cooldown reduced. There might be situations like PvP where you want increased duration, but knockups are insane in this game. I've talked about it over and over again. Where having a knockup actually makes it's a undr'able CC because knockups don't have a DR to them. That's why like the Evoker knockup is so good with upheaval. But for PvE and Mythic Plus, it's probably going to be the knockup. Bone Shaker might matter in PvP, but I think it's going to be Earthquaker all the time. If we're going to be focusing on single target, we'll be taking Arterial Bleed, Tides of Battle, and then this is a tricky one because it all depends on the types of fight you're doing and the kind of content you're doing. If you're doing Mythic Plus and you're actually taking a high amount of damage, No Stranger to Pain is probably going to be the pick. But if you're in Raid, you're probably going to take Rally because it's just general. Because a lot of raid fights have constant rot damage and you're not dealing with big hits. So it just kind of depends on what you're dealing with. Big hits, rot damage. The only thing that's different here that is to note is you'll need to spec into Second Wind and or Ignore Pain for either one of these to work efficiently. And with that being the case, we don't really know exactly how this is going to affect it, right? We haven't looked at our talent point economy yet. I'm going to focus purely on damage, so I will be skipping Second Wind as much as I can. But if there's an additional point to take it where it makes sense, then we'll be looking at Rally, right? Otherwise, we'll just keep this here for now. Mortal Strike and Slam damage, and Shield Slam damage. Precise Smite, gain an additional stack. This talent is insane now. 5% more damage, 5% less damage, size increase. Size increase, whatever. But 5% less damage just all the time? Crazy. Like insane. Let's see. Increase shockwave distance. It's cool. So this is kind of insane. So 5 seconds, right? So a knock up in the air, cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. We're down to 35 seconds. If you hit at least 3 targets, which you will in a Mythic Plus setting with Rumbling Earth, this becomes a 20-second knockup. So that's pretty good. But we're not looking at Mythic Plus yet, right? We're just thinking about Raid. Just thinking about Raid. So we're gonna take the Leech, we're gonna take the move speed. War Machine, we need that. We'll take Impending Victory. Leap is important. We do not need Stormbolt. We'll probably be taking... This is something I don't know. With the new Rage economy, are we taking Thunderclap and Blood and Thunder? Because normally what we would do before is we'd be increasing the amount of damage or the amount of rage spent through Thunderclap, but now with the changes, I don't think that's happening as much anymore. So we're going to avoid it for now. Let's go with Pain and Gain and Frothing Berserker. These are just bonus damage talents, and now we still need some talent points to unlock this bottom row. So what do we take? Bounding Stride is probably one of the best points you can take, which now unlocks all of these. Growling Cry is a given, Spell Reflect is a given. But to get to our single target setup, we're going to need to take Shockwave. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is weird. where it's like, well, why do I need to take, why would I want to spend a point to take something that I don't need in single target, right? But on the other hand, it's like, okay, well, let's assume we just have to take this. This is only one talent point. Um, and we'll move over here. With our rage economy, I don't know if this overwhelming rage increase even matters, but regardless, we're going to need 2 points, right? So if we don't, we're going to assume we're going flat damage, and the rage economy is better than it was before, so we don't need the bonus maximum rage. We're going with crushing force, and then do we need coffinus or menace? No, no. Double time is very useful to have. And then we have barbaric training or sidearm. It's kind of weird. It seems like barbaric training is going to be the single target option. It just depends on what does more damage and what we're casting, right? Like if we're casting slams a lot more, it's probably going to be barbaric training, because this. So we'll assume we're doing slam, but we still need to spend more points to get to where we need to go. So what can we get? Assuming we don't need the additional rage, what about a point in second wind? All right, that's not enough. Because we're thinking just pure PvE. So let's put a point here. Let's put another point here. Okay, that is still not enough. So now we have the options for a little more utility. Are we going to be taking Thunderclap for potential bleed spread? What can this talent point give us? Are we going to be taking Honed Reflexes for reduced cooldown and overpower, since they reduced Tactician to reset overpower less? What happens when we take this one? 1 point here unlocks everything else. So we need to decide if we're taking Honed Reflexes or if we might be taking Thunderclap. If we're thinking a single target raid scenario, we're probably taking Honed Reflexes. We're not going to be taking Thunderclap because it's more efficient in AoE situations, especially with the bleed spread. But we're not considering that right now. We're just going to consider that we're going to be casting pure single target. So 2 points here, two-handed weapon specialization, haste and auto attack crits increase your attack speed. That's good. We're going to be taking Avatar, Spear, and then because we're also going to be assuming we're going to be using Spear with Demolish when we can line it up, right? That's going to be an assumption. Just because you want to increase the damage of your biggest hitting spell within this. So we'll take that, and we'll take the crit damage. We'll probably also be taking Recklessness at reduced effectiveness, if I had to guess. Then we'll take our 2 points here. And then this leaves us with an interesting option, right? We have 1 point left. That means we can either take the instant damage is increased and its rage generation is increased. But that's only 20 rage on cast, and then there's just a little bit of damage, so it's not that big. Or you can also just take Spear. Or you can also take Thunderous Roar. So essentially you have 2 buttons. I'm not sure what the answer is here. Realistically, are we gonna... I don't think we take both of these, because this talent isn't really enticing enough. So, for damage, are we also potentially taking Roar? I mean, we don't have the endurance training, but if we're in a raid scenario, we're not really thinking about needing a bunch of additional stamina just yet, right? So is it going to look something like this for just pure single target? I don't know. But let's move over to the base talent tree, right? We have Moral Strike, Overpower. We're going to be taking this. And then this is a situation where if we're in a raid setting, we're probably taking Fueled by Violence. As it stands, Fueled by Violence doesn't actually do that much. It's just decent against rot. So if there's any situations where we need to actually live against mechanics in raid, we're going to be taking Ignore Pain instead. But we are going to be taking Improved Execute. Martial prowess, improved overpower. Realistically, if we're focusing on single target, we're not going to take fervor of battle, so that goes sudden death into crit. Then we will be doing exhilarating blows, massacre. Obviously, we're taking a point into Collosus Smash. As far as the math is concerned, I don't know. Spiteful Serenity and for the kill is better. So we're just going to assume anger management currently. Tactician is a must. Rend is a must. If we're doing pure single target, we do not take Dreadnought. We'll be taking Strength of Arms. Once again, just go Test of Might, Blunt Instruments. And then that leaves us with these points here, right? This is our full single target setup. We're not taking Sword of Storms. We're not taking the AoE talents. We're not taking this AoE talent. It is a decent button, but if we're going to be hitting a single target, it's probably going to be Slam instead of Cleave that we hit, realistically, especially when this is increasing the damage of Slam. So now we have a couple options. Wait a minute. Sorry, I just realized that I never took this talent point, so I'm dumb. So we won't be having both. It'll be one or the other. But now we have options, right? We can go Bloodborne, or we can go Finishing Blows. Having to do a single talent point just to generate some extra rage, it's good, but I personally don't like it. But we're going to assume we're going to take one of these, right? And if the rage economy is the way we think it is, maybe we do want additional rage from this. That then unlocks the bottom row here. So we'll put a point into Valor for Victory. Most likely it's going to be Ravager and Hurricane. But in single target scenarios, we're probably not taking Bone Grinder or Dance of Death. Then that leads us into our Critical Thinking, Juggernaut, Mortal Strike, good, good, good. But we come to a problem. I didn't realize it was going to be this strict. Because we used to be able to take a point here in Valor for Victory and then go down into these nodes, right? So now we're choosing between Executioner's Precision. Dude, what the Huh? Wait, we are way more starved than I thought for points here. Like, this is definitely our single target stuff. But it's weird not having access to Fatality. Because this is so weird. Actually. Shit, I just dropped the cap to this bottle. So we have 2 points left? I mean, do we maybe not take Valor and Victory? We save a point here, and then we can go, like, Battle Lord? Dude, what is happening? I mean, I guess it's because this was Bladestorm all the time, so we just ignored this node. But having Hurricane Ravager is really good. Are we going to run something like this in a full single target setup? I'm not sure, actually. Because the fact that this is Ravager and not Bladestorm changes things. Because if we're taking anger management, we're not just anger managing Colossus Smash, but we're getting value on Ravager Hurricane too. So is it going to look something like this for PL single target? We're missing out on Fatality. We'll be losing Bloodletting. I mean, it's possible that we just do this for single target instead, but it does... I don't know, maybe this Ravager Hurricane's a mistake, and we're just going to go back to this. It does suck that we don't have Get Valor and Victory, because 2% is really, really good. And if we're not playing around our bleeds a lot, is it possible that we can snag this point instead of Bloodletting, since we're not going to be... Huh. I'm not really sure. They actually need to cook on this a little more. This is way more stringent than I thought it was going to be. So for single target, it definitely feels pretty up in the air, right? I think it's going to come down to what's better, because the one thing we have to remember is because we still have Test of Might, this bonus strength increase works with the Hurricane bonus. So, like, we're going to have a big damage bonus within these windows. To the point where we might even be, like, holding Ravager a little. We might even be using Colossus Smash and then using Ravager towards the end of it. Because Ravager lasts... How long does it last? Okay, it says 12 seconds, so it's going to last the same amount. So we'll probably send Colossus Smash and then Ravager and then go... Huh. And then just spend in those windows. So maybe it is possible that instead we'll be looking at something more like this for single target. And then Fatality might be considered more of like a PvP talent? I'm not sure. That's very interesting for single target. And this is what... And it's just going to be mathed out by people way smarter than me on what to take specifically. But I wonder if it's going to look something like this. Because, I mean, we do have Arterial Bleed, so it increases our rend and deep wounds damage. And that, I mean, that also means we kind of want Bloodborne a little bit. I don't know, it's so weird. Maybe instead we're taking... I don't know, it feels weird to take Skull Splitter in this situation, but maybe it maths out that if we're not really getting demolished within our spear windows, instead for single target, we'd be taking something like Thunderous Words down here. I'm moving this up because my face was probably blocking it. Maybe we'd take Thunderous Words instead, and then we'd work more towards like these bleed talents. How many points do I have left? 1. I don't know. I really don't know what a single target looks like. I need to... They're going to sim it and they'll figure it out, but... Right now, Colossus seems very weird. Because if everything's built around Demolish, I'm assuming you're going to go Spear into Champion's Might. And then you're going to be focus building around that. But even then, if you're going to do Spear into Champion's Might into big Demolish windows, does that mean that we will be saving points to go Ravager Hurricane with... We wouldn't do Skull Splitter. Does that mean we're still going to run something like this instead for PL single target and then build around big Demolish windows and Spear? I'm not sure. We'd still probably be going haste crit. But I do wonder... I actually wonder if in this scenario and this setup, if casting Avatar... Oh... What if casting Avatar... But it says Avatar Bladestorm. If this gets buffed and also casts Ravager, potentially, I don't know if it will, because, I mean, it should. But if this changes to where it casts Ravager, You could start your opening combo with a Colossus Smash into a this would autocast Ravager, and then by doing so, that you have the Ravager window during the Colossus Smash, so the bonus strength, and then you would also have another Ravager to keep the window up during Test of Might for a lot of strength gain. I don't know if it works that way. Hopefully, I get access to the alpha and I can test it, but if it did, that'd be interesting. All right, well, we've looked at this, right? We've looked at this. Now, let's consider, let's refresh this and consider Mythic Plus, right? We've looked at single target. Well, let's look at it and let's consider Mythic Plus a little bit. For the Mythic Plus setup, obviously we're going to do the same stuff. It's probably going to be, once again, Earthshaker, Mythic Plus, like high Mythic Plus generally. You're not taking a lot of damage, but you need to mitigate bigger hits. Depending on how that works, we'll probably be taking No Stranger to Pain. We'll be taking one against many. Shockwave, Cleave, Whirlwind, and Revenge deal 5% more damage per target, so it's just more damage. And then also, your martial prowess stacks are affecting Cleave. Your collateral damage stuff is using Cleave. So now let's go back into the tree. Probably take this stuff, take all this good stuff. If you're running Mythic Plus, you're most likely taking Stormbolt. And then probably Blood and Thunder for spread. Rumbling Earth might not be a necessity. I don't know if we'll take Slam. Taking seismic reverberation. Now, what are our options here? You have to take one of these. It's probably just the damage, right? Just taking the damage. And if we're taking that talent, we're probably taking Barbaric Training again. But for Mythic Plus... Mythic Plus, maybe something like this for the percent increased health gain. But that... We need 1 point for this. Maybe... Oh, fuck, man. Dude, this is like... This talent point economy is rough. Because you're always going to pick the damage, right? Like, picking the damage is the most important thing. How the fuck do you fit this in? I mean, we take 5% reduced damage. These talent trees seem kind of rough, actually, the more I look at them. Because, like, there's so many things you might want to take. But, like, can you take them? Like, are we even going to worry too much about bleeds? Like... You know, let's assume we're not worried about bleeds. But that doesn't fix the point where we still need 2 more points to unlock these. Maybe you take something like Rumbling Earth and... Seismic? This seems rough, man. Like, how are we ever supposed to pick between damage and survivability when damage is what matters most in most situations? Like, for High Mythic Plus, if the damage isn't that, if we don't need that for the bonus damage, maybe this point isn't very important, so we can just take endurance training, but, like, the talent setup seems rough. So if we're going AoE, we're probably not taking sudden death. And if we're going Mythic Plus, we'll assume ignore pain. I mean, we might, if we're doing Mythic Plus, we might as well just take Fervor, right? And we can put into Improved Overpower. We'll need that. We'll go Cleave, Collateral. Whirlwind has a 30% chance to make your next Whirlwind cost 100% less Rage. Maybe that's going to be something like going into a... Instead of taking Massacre, it'll take something like this. We'll go Anger Management, Warbreaker, in for the kill, Dreadnought, Tactician, Rend. Seems so weird. I mean, this might be just like a single target option. We'll go Ravager, Hurricane. We'll need this. We won't take Fatality. How many points do we have left? We have 1? I mean, if we're spamming, do we go Bone Grinder? Okay, the connections in these trees are actually really rough. Because, like, we used to have better options to pick, right? Like, we could pick this and we could skip something like Depth Experience, but now we're forced into it, so our talent point economy is just in shambles. So this is maybe something we run on AoE for Colossus? But if we're doing Deep Wounds Rend 15%, does that mean... Depending on how much bleed damage we do, maybe we go with Arterial instead of 1 against many. But if we go Arterial bleed, that means we swap this up, and then we're taking Blood and Thunder because we want to spread as many Rends as possible, because this only spreads Deep Wounds. So if we're assuming we're going to go full bleed with Arterial instead of 1 against many. There's Blood and Thunder. Here's that. Here's that. Something like this, maybe, where we don't take Barbaric Training. But if we're spamming Whirlwind, we want Barbaric Training. We just don't take Honed Reflexes, then? Something like this? Or most of our, like, mid-combat, we're spamming... Just spamming Whirlwind for forever battles, and... I'm not sure how to take these just yet. I think I'm gonna look... We're gonna be putting this up as, like, a first look kind of thing. But I'm very conflicted on these trees right now. Because we just don't have enough points. Like, we have so few options. Like, look at just this side of the tree itself requires 4 points of investment just for good bleed. And 5 if we're going bleeds with Skull Splitter. 5 of our points are right here. Maybe these need to be put down to, like, 10% and 1-point talents instead? For some variety? I don't know, man. Because we can't even take the Cleave talent here. This is so weird.